Welcome to the Pizza King podcast, your destination for all things pizza business. I'm your host, Tyrell Reed, and every week we're taking a deep dive into the behind the scenes world of running a successful pizza business, from team building to sales growth, multi-unit strategies, and much more. Doesn't even matter if you're a pizza vet, just starting out in the game, just your first shop, whatever you're doing, this podcast will be your go-to resource for tips, strategies, and success stories. As always, send me your questions to info@tyrellreed.com. Go connect with me on Instagram at Pizza King Podcast. Let's get into the episode. Pizza! As someone who's closed restaurants that have failed, it's a lot of money when you're paying into a restaurant and the restaurant's not paying you. And I've been there. Look, I'm not coming to you because I've done it right every single time. I'm talking to you from some of the mistakes that I made too. What's going on, Pizza King podcast listeners? I'm back at it with you. It's your host, Tyrell T. Big T, they call me. First of all, if you didn't get a chance to listen to last week's episode with Mike Bausch, go check that out because it was jam-packed with a bunch of good information, a lot of insights into what it takes to just, become that multi-unit super powerhouse pizza empire like what he's built out in Tulsa. He gave some practical insights, and also, make sure you just go check out some of the products that he's got, with, if it's even getting the free book with Unslice, or joining a mail list or signing up for his course and coaching program. All very beneficial for anyone looking to grow that business. So out of that, I thought it'd be important to talk through, just some different scenarios when it comes to getting into the pizza business. Obviously, there's a lot of different routes and a lot of different paths to get to an open restaurant. But I wanted to talk about one specifically, which is, very common and also very risky if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't have a plan, which is through the acquisition model. So for those that don't know, there are lots of restaurants that open every single year. And the unfortunate side of what we do is that not every one of those situations works out, right? For whatever reason, it could be money, it could be bad location, it could be poor management and operations, it could be, someone just decided that it just wasn't the right thing to do. It was too much work. There's a lot of different reasons that it doesn't work out, but what happens is that creates opportunity. And if you're somebody like me, even beyond the acquisition model, if you're like me and you're looking for a new unit to get into, or a new situation, a lot of times we start by trying to find like second gen or fair value acquisitions to lower our cost of entry, right? So that becomes very popular. I mean, listen, maybe we don't all know, but there are restaurant sharks out there waiting on opportunities to scoop these things up, because you get them for way less than what it would cost to build out a new store or to buy something that's profitable. So failing businesses sell to, whether it's, finding a way to take over. And there's a lot of different ways to get into that. And I won't go into that in this episode, but I think maybe we will come back and kind of break down the acquisition process, because there are different ways to take over a restaurant too. So, but for today, I just wanted to talk about what it looks like after you get into that situation. Like, what are your goals? What do I focus on first? How would I turn around a failing restaurant if that's what I found myself getting into, if I were taking over something that was cheap, 30, 40, 50,000 or whatever it costs. Like, if I was going to do something like that and it was a failing situation, what would I do, or what would I focus on to turn that situation around? And that's what I wanted to talk about here today, because those opportunities actually, once you've proven yourself to be a reputable operator, a good person in the community, you know, a celebrated business leader, these opportunities start to find you. Like people think of you when things pop up because, like I said before, it's the unfortunate side of it, but these things do pop up and they do happen quite frequently. I mean, I'm telling you, I work franchise leads and I'm in the franchise sales side of things too. And there are opportunities almost every single day, almost every single day. So, but it also takes the right person with the right plan to make sure that you turn those into profitable situations, because just because something's cheap doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. Oftentimes it's actually the opposite. The cheaper it is, the higher the hill to climb, right? The longer the road is to profitability. So what would I do when I'm in those situations? If there's just a few main key things that I'm really trying to focus on let me back up. For example, if we're deciding we're going to take over a store and, you got a closing date and you get all these things. After you've gone through the due diligence and you've got your, all your accounts set up and your vendors and all these things, it comes time to really start putting the work in on righting the ship, right? So I like to focus on 5 things when it comes to turning around the operations of a place, especially if the goal is to turn it around quickly. I'm going on 5 key areas, and this is how we right a ship in a failing restaurant. And look, and this even applies to a store that's not something that we take over, but if I'm in a situation where someone reaches out to me and they want some assistance or they want me to coach them on just getting it straight, right? Just getting it together. I'm going to follow the same processes here, because chances are the same elements that are causing one restaurant to fail are probably some of the same things that we're going to see in most other situations. So 5 things, and I'll run them down, and we'll kind of just talk through each one of them. But first thing I'm going to focus on is food safety. Second, I'm going to focus on cash processes, like what are we doing with the money. Third, we're talking about inventory and food costs. Fourth, we're going to talk about management routines. And last, we're going to talk through communication. And I think it's important to note when I say these are the things, and I'm 100% talking about these are the things that we're going to work on as a leadership team, meaning owner, general manager, assistant general manager, shift leads, trainers, like who are the leaders in this situation, because these are the people that we want to correct behaviors in first, and then roll things out to the rest of the team. But I always prefer to start with taking care of the leadership portion first, because these are the people who are really doing the heavy lifting, in the situation every single day. And if we can correct their behaviors, we can start to set the precedent for thriving, profitable situation later, right? Because that's the goal. We don't want to continue to have to dump money into a failing restaurant. And as someone who's closed restaurants that have failed, it's a lot of money when you're paying into a restaurant and the restaurant's not paying you. And I've been there. Look, I'm not coming to you because I've done it right every single time. I'm talking to you from some of the mistakes that I made too. So trust me when I tell you, it gets real expensive if you don't correct some of the things that are really driving your restaurant down. But the first one is food safety. And I think this is first on my list when it comes to coaching, to teaching. Food safety's got to be number one. It's our top priority as operators to provide a safe experience for our customers, not just from a cleanliness standpoint, but are we choosing the right vendors? Are we handling the food the right way? Are we teaching our team to handle the food the right way? Like, not just checking the boxes, meaning we got serve safe and, we did, like, we got our labels. No, or do we really have the right processes in place to maintain a high quality clean, safe, sanitized environment. And this is an everyday practice. This is something that can never and should never be looked over. Food safety is our number one responsibility, our number one priority when it comes to serving our guests. Like they give us their hard-earned money because they trust that we're doing the right things behind the door, behind the curtain, behind the kitchen wall to ensure that they're getting the best quality or the highest quality product. You know what I mean? So food safety is number one. And it's usually it's covering the basics. Do we have a process for labeling all of our prep and all of our product? Do we have a process for how we receive, store, prepare, and distribute food product, right? So there's a process for each one of those. Do we have good hand washing practices? Do we have temperature checking and is our equipment working properly? So taking the time to really address that with your leadership team and from the beginning, making it the highest priority, because look, and these things are set up to build on each other, week by week. So are we set up to to really say that we're operating in the safest possible environment? And that's an important one. So we spend a lot of time just addressing food safety concerns, taking care of that, and building in good habits and good practices. Second, we're going to talk about, second, I'm always going to go towards, the cash processes. Like that's like the next most important thing is, all right, so we know the food is good. We know, no one's at any risk from ordering from this place. Where the money at? How does the money flow? Like how are we handling cash, deposits? How long do credit card deposits take? How are we tracking these things? Like, so that we don't let things slip through the cracks, because I promise you, and this isn't a knock on any person or anything, but if there's no regard to where the cash is and how the cash is handled, and I promise you, you're missing some of it. So cash handling processes, deposits, how are we making drops? Do we have a safe? Who has access to the safe? Who's taking cash deposits to the bank? How are we verifying those deposits? All these things have to be documented and systemized so that every single person understands what their role is in that. So, the last thing you want is for cash and not that cash is a huge deal in our business anymore. A lot of things a lot of transactions are, credit card and tap and all these other things, online transactions. However, we still need to know, there's still the potential for a variance if things aren't being properly monitored and checked. So having a process for that, and this is a daily process, just like food safety, daily process where we're checking that cash every day. If it's a situation where you're in a high volume situation, you may be dropping deposits twice a day, depending on how your shifts work. So working out our cash processes is going to be, the next most important thing on my list. Then once and again, remember, we're working with leadership team on these things, so they can implement and, enforce, react, like whatever they got to do, just making sure that the leadership team understands the processes. Then there's the inventory and food, inventory, food cost processes. Like, what do the counts look like? And I know there's some folks that don't believe in, counting inventory. We're just, we know what our food spend is. And if it gets out of whack, then we know we're starting to have a problem. But as your volume starts to grow, and I think that's fine up to a certain level, but as your volume starts to increase, you're gonna want to you need to understand your food variance, because a small variance could mean big dollars depending on the item. If your cheese is out 2% every day, that adds up to a ton of money at the end of the week and at the end of the year. Like, why are we, where's the cheese going? it just indicates something going on. Is there something wrong with our portioning? Is there something going on in the process? Are we seeing product go out the door? Like, so having a process for inventory, for counts, there's critical counts, there's daily counts. If we're talking like in pizza, a lot of folks like to count boxes, count cheese, on a daily. That gives you just a quick and dirty estimate on, what went out versus what was sold versus what went out. And that's where we start to see gaps. And this becomes more of a loss prevention type deal, right? So we prevent any potential for theft, or, I mean, let's just call it, it's just theft. Even if it's not with the thought of being, I'm stealing this, it's still theft. If they're giving food away or whatever, it just is what it is. So having a process for that allows you to have deeper insights into, where your potential gaps are. So having a system that helps you understand actual versus your theoretical usage every single day or every week, understanding what that variance means, understanding what your tolerance is for, the variance on particular items and overall variance. It may not be a big deal to be out, 0.5% on a certain topping if we know that, we're okay with putting a little extra on, or we know that some of these things start, have a, highly, perishable and go bad quickly. We need to know. So, and then understanding what our waste looks like, having a waste log. These are processes that turn into the system. So having an inventory process and a system for managing your food helps you run a successful and profitable business later on. So as we move on from inventory processes, we go into management routines. Like, what are those daily and weekly routines look like from a leadership standpoint? What day of the week are we writing schedules? What day do we do inventory? What days do we have team meetings? What days are we, like, just having routines to make your life easier? Because as a restaurant leader, there's usually a lot of things swirling around you, and you got a lot going on at any particular time. So having some balance and having some things systemized, having some routines in place helps control a little bit of the chaos. Because once you get into it, and once we get into our peak times, lunch rush, dinner rush, you're not the same manager. You are, an important person in a function in those, oftentimes, in a function in those times and during those situations. So you need to manage your time, your off-peak times, as efficiently as you possibly can. And to me, that's through routine. So routines help keep leadership on track, which in turn helps keep the rest of the team on track and focus on whatever those daily and weekly tasks are. So I always try to, put together an outline of what the expectations are on a daily and weekly basis. And then we start to tailor what the routines and the schedule looks like beyond that. So, sometimes there's some non-negotiables, and then sometimes there's some things that are just flexible, but it helps to build in consistency, which just helps with a whole bunch of shit later on. So being consistent is going to help you no matter what. If you're consistently on point, if you're consistently bad, your shit's just going to be off. And then the last thing that we talked through is communication. Like, what do our communication processes look like? Because at the end of the day, like I always say, communication, my dog ran out. Communication just can't fail. Like, people who need to get information need to get the information. So whether it's making sure that you have daily huddles, for each shift, or, you're highlighting what needs to be done on, the charts and checklists around the store, or you got, digital checklists or something like that, or, you got email and text things that go out. Having a good communication plan and a system for how each person gets the messages that they need to receive is going to be another important piece of that. So those are the 5 things. Remember, food safety, cash processes, inventory processes, management routines, and communication processes. Those are the things that I'm going to focus on when it comes to turning around a bad situation, or a business that's losing money, or in a acquisition or transition situation, we're going to focus on those to make sure that our leadership team is on point and ready for whatever comes next, which means retraining the staff or even bringing in new people. You're going to know that the people who are in charge, your leadership team, is on point because you address the major key items in that situation. So that's all I got. Holler at your boy. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Pizza King podcast with Tyrell Reed. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to me. Got a topic you love to cover or a question that you want answered? Shoot me an email at info@tyrellreed.com or reach out to me on Instagram at Pizza King Podcast. I love hearing from all of the listeners.